is Thursday night, so you know what that means. This is Wrestling Chat with Friends, brought to you on the Family Podcast Network. I am your host, Cheats, and I am joined, as always, by my right-hand man, the Tully Blanchard to Arn Anderson, if you will, EJ the Collector. EJ, how you feeling today?
I am here. I am present. I am accounted for, and I'm accountable. And I'm hyped. I'm excited. Our Tuesday show, we talked WWE. It was great. I'm hyped to talk AEW and All In tonight. So let's get Collector's Choice out of the way. My favorite website in the world, Ringside Collectibles, where I get all my figures from, is having their All In sale. So I've probably described this before. When they release a series, they will make some chase variants of a couple of the figures and randomly send them out to people who have ordered the figures. And I've been lucky enough to get a couple of them. So with the all-in sale and them kind of trying to get rid of their inventory, what I went ahead and did is I picked up some of the figures that I had received the chase variants of so I could have the actual normal figure that they released. For example, this was the chase variant Sean Spears from Series 5. I just ordered the Sean Spears, and this one came. It was one of 3,000. So because it was on sale, I picked up the actual Sean Spears.
You've doubled up, if you will.
I've doubled up, even though they are different figures.
Right.
So I did the same with a couple others. I'd gotten a Jungle Boy variant, and I picked up the normal Jungle Boy. That's from Series 11 of Unrocked.
But do you have a Jack Perry?
I don't have a Jack Perry because there is no Jack Perry yet. I'm sure that was on its way. And also, Series 11 of Unrivaled is where I really scored because not only did I get a Chase Jungle Boy, one of 5,000, I got a one of 3,000 Penelope Ford. So I picked up the normal Penelope Ford also.
Very nice.
Didn't spend a lot of money. Ringside Collectibles is fantastic. I'm waiting on my Danhausen. I'm waiting on a couple others from the series that's coming out next month. So I'll have new figures to show you in the next couple of weeks. But let's talk AEW. Let's get it on.
Before we do, have we talked about this aspect of it? I see them all on your wall. Mm-hmm. Do you open the boxes?
I don't.
Okay.
Yep. I also do not buy. I mean, mostly just because I'm really partial to AEW right now, mostly because I have a very addictive personality and I can't spend all my money. Sometimes I definitely have more money than sense. I don't even buy WWE figures.
Okay.
Not that they're not cool, not that I wouldn't want some, but in the last couple of years, kind of since I've been doing the show and since AEW started, when AEW finally announced that they were going to release figures, I thought, this could be cool. First new wrestling company in a couple of years. Figures during the pandemic were really hot, and they still are. So I started buying the series as they came out, and I've tried to keep myself just by buying those. So most of my purchases are through Ringside Collectibles, but AEW figures are found at Walmart and Target, and I check those periodically. I actually, it's already on the wall. I picked up a Walmart exclusive Wardlow the other day.
Nice.
And I also picked up the Target exclusive Adam Cole. So I just kind of want to find the cool ones and just build this collection. I'm over 105 right now. So
now the last thing I'll ask about this, and I promise we'll get into All In. Have you sold any of them?
I have not. I haven't had a need to, nor a desire.
Right.
I don't collect a whole lot of things to sell. I like having them around because they're fun to have, fun to look at. They could be something I sell in the future, but no, I am just a fan of AEW. I'm a fan of Jazzwares, who makes the AEW figures, and I just think they're awesome. I think the company's awesome. I think the talent's awesome. It's a great alternative for WWE, and I'm glad we get to talk about it. And I'm hyped. I'm all in for AEW.
I am a collector as well. We talked about this, and we talk about some of our good friend Kelsey on Tuesdays does some breaks over with our good friends over at Graybo's.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you this, I am, for the first time in a long time ever, I'm in a position where I think I'm gonna start to ride some of these I'm gonna start to sell some of our collection, in certain ways, just to see, because here's the thing, I think it's a little bit different with something like a sealed AEW figure.
Hmm.
But with a sports card, they kind of move like the stock market. There are ups and there's downs, and there's like, and if you're not like at a stock, if you're not a long term holder, this is going to be my long term position. Then you need to kind of move while they're hot. And there's some aspects of the game right now in the card collecting game where I was like, maybe I just like take that win, if you will, now, and figure it
Well,
all out.
card collecting is a amazing industry. It's much different than when you and I were kids and we were getting packs and putting them in our albums, baseball, football, basketball,
It
and you
is
collected.
different.
It is a whole industry, and to really be successful and strike while the iron's hot, that's some of the things I've observed is you've just got to be on it full
You
time.
got you got to figure out when to sell, right? There's
Yeah. Yeah.
because again, if you're not a long term holder, you got to figure out when to sell any of your collectibles, and then
Hmm.
again, if you're a long term holder, it's a different thing. Or you could say, I want to like collect a specific figure or person or so forth, and that's kind of your personal stash, and then you kind of work around trading some of the other stuff. So we'll see, I don't know, but we do have, you mentioned Ringside Collectibles, I mentioned our good friends over at Graybo's. There's a lot to be desired when it comes to the card collecting and collectibles industry. And so I'm glad, my friend, that I don't know what the value of the collection you've amassed is, but I'm sure it's pretty good right now.
Well, like anything else, I bet the most expensive ones that are there are some of the early series I have that just
Right.
are hard to find now, or these exclusive variants that
I'm
are that are numbered. It's all about numbered with
right.
cards
And
and
I'm just trying to
figures.
figure out, like, is
Hmm.
WCW, is that like the wax box era now? And if you have like a WCW Goldberg, can you get that off on eBay? I don't know. I don't think the other thing about this is there's always got to be a market, no matter how cool it is, right?
Hmm.
There's got to be a market for somebody on the other side to buy it. And sometimes we can get like a little too obscure for our own good, right?
You
Like,
can, however, in the couple of years I've sort of been wheeling and dealing with selling a few different things. My brother also, Andy, is kind of in that market selling things, vintage clothes, vintage sports stuff. There is a market for virtually anything.
virtually anything. That's a good thing about 2023. Well, let's talk. I want to talk about what's happening in AEW right now, but I want to do it in a little bit different context because we are about a week or so away now. And I think there's at least another full week, right? AEW All In Wembley Stadium
Hmm.
set right now to be the biggest live wrestling show in the history of professional wrestling. Is
If
set.
if you don't count North Korea in the 90s that WCW put on, because
Okay.
the totals are disputed. That's an
Okay.
unofficial number.
Oh,
We
yeah, yeah, yeah.
got to mention it, but yes, they're gonna set a gate record.
So that is August 27th. So we're officially 10 days away from All In. This week has been really interesting in regards to not only kind of what's happening in the AEW storyline, so what is really happening, I guess, kayfabe, if you will,
Hmm.
and then what's happening kind of behind the scenes. And I want to start with what's happening behind the scenes because there have been reports this week from anonymous dirt sheet sources that a lot of talent is upset about the build up to All In. A lot of talent feels like there's a lot of pressure, unnecessary pressure that's being put on this show because obviously the record gates and the record numbers. And a lot of talent is in a position where they don't know what they're doing exactly when it comes to 10 days from now and the biggest show possibly definitely in the history of AEW. So I'm going to start by asking you, have you heard this stuff, EJ? Have you heard concerns about the build up now and almost kind of concerned about living up to the hype, if you will? And are you concerned, as if some of the dirt sheets are reporting that they're concerned about how this thing's going to work?
We talked a little bit about it on Tuesday about dirt sheets and wrestling tribalism, and how much that I know you and I try to stay above and out of that fray, but it it's pretty much at a fever pitch right now. Yes, I have heard a lot of those rumors. I think that this event, I mean, if you're getting over 80,000, which they're going to have at Wembley Stadium, Great Britain, great wrestling fans there. They're excited. It's the first time AEW's coming there. I'd have to think that this has exceeded anyone's expectations, including Tony Khan's. So this has become a giant event, and with giant event breeds giant expectations. So this has also been built. The build for it's been very, non-traditional. Most of the matches have only been announced in the last couple of days. Between Collision on Saturday
Yep.
and Dynamite yesterday, we finally got a sense of what that card's going to look like. I was excited for this show just by seeing every week when the number of tickets sales were just kept rising and rising and rising, and just the build up for it. Is it gonna meet expectations? Well, that kind of depends on what your expectations are. From an industry standpoint, I hope it does. I don't know what a lot of people think. I mean, I guess there were some expectations of certain matchups that people naturally thought were going to happen. Bring back some classic rivalries. There's this whole, the large storyline with AEW sort of just underneath the surface, or whether some of these leaders of these various shows were going to eventually find their way together too, which doesn't look like it's going to happen. I'm talking about Punk and the Elite. Everyone kind of thought, oh, this is where you have them do a program. Well, that hasn't happened yet. A lot of people also thought there'd be Omega and Ospreay go for another go around. It'd be gold, but that's not in the cards either. If I was a talent in professional wrestling, I'd have a completely different mindset. I don't know how prepared these guys are weeks ahead of time as far as knowing what they're going to do anyway. Isn't pro wrestling kind of like seat of your pants? You got to go sort of with the feel. But I think just the enormity of this event and how much is probably riding on the reputation of AEW, it's causing nerves from everybody. If these talents are feeling nervous, I can only imagine how Tony's feeling right now, having put this show on. What do you think?
So you said a lot, so I want to unpack a couple of things. I think there's also an element of this that we do want to highlight going into All In, which I think vastly and grossly disrupted storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is Bryan Danielson is hurt. He is not going to participate in All In.
Yep.
I think Bryan Danielson was slated to be kind of the big, one of the biggest stars you could possibly push, possibly an MJF Bryan Danielson after Danielson won his big match against Okada, right?
Right.
And then he goes out. You're in the UK, Wembley Stadium. It is a huge platform, if you will, for Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter's out, right? So there's another one that's just major. Not to mention, we haven't even seen Jade Cargill, right? Jade Cargill, I don't know if she's hurt or not, but she's not
lost her title. Is out of the picture now. Maybe
right.
she worked a good year and a half straight, so she's taking a break,
but not slated to be an All In.
No,
right?
not advertised at all.
So here's so you keep getting these things, right? You keep getting these things, and I think they were trying to make some of these adjustments on the fly, along with this whole situation down. You've got the biggest show, like I said, the biggest show you possibly ever could make, but you're also trying to submit Collision as a completely different AEW product.
Yeah.
So that was a whole thing, right? How do we distinguish Collision as the place to be on Saturday night that's different from Dynamite, that's different from Rampage? And I actually think they did a really good job so far of making Collision its own standalone, really awesome show.
For sure.
However, how much energy has to go into that? Again, like you're saying, and we're keeping people away from each other, and we're having people work on different shows, and we're introducing talent on certain shows. And so I do think we're at a period now where it's like, oh crap, we're 10 days out. Not saying they haven't thought about this long term. I'm sure creative has been thinking about this for a long time, but
Mm-hmm.
I really do think they're like, oh crap, we're 10 days out. We really have to start making some of this stuff work out for Wembley. And so the frustration I would have, and I don't know if that answered your question exactly, EJ, but the frustration I would have is this is your WrestleMania times 1,000. Like this is your biggest show of the year, and given the context that it's in the UK with that crowd in Wembley Stadium, this has to be your biggest show of the year. And I
Well,
think
I
and
think it
I
has to be. I think it has to be your biggest show ever.
right, okay. I'm with you. So keep riding that wave, right?
Yeah.
And you're 10 days out and you haven't built story. Even the matches that they're announcing are Will Ospreay comes out last night and
Yep.
now it's Ospreay Jericho at Wembley.
Yeah.
That's no time. That's not a story. This gets it like Tom TG is in the comments. I haven't read the comment yet, but I will. But it goes to everything we talk about when you talk about long-term story planning versus what AEW typically does. And I hate to say it because I'm a big AEW fan as well, but this seems like you should have been building these stories for months to crescendo at All In, not to say Will Ospreay runs out and you're fighting Jericho on Saturday.
Well, I have a. I'm looking at this event as a. I wouldn't say not as far as almost like a one-off, but it's sort of I see it as a feature event. Are they going to be? I mean, this is not planned. The only thing that's sort of been regular on their pay-per-view cycle that's been sort of grander than their Double or Nothing or these other ones have been their Forbidden Doors, which now they've done 2 years in a row. So, is Forbidden Door going to come back every single year? Maybe.
Yes, I
Is
absolutely think so.
I
think
hope
it,
I
I
hope
think
it
it's a
does.
big winner for AEW.
I
I
don't
think
think
so.
I don't think they're going to count on a once a year event that's going to try to outdraw itself, at 80,000 and above. They're not going to do this Wembley show every year. Do they have aspirations for that? Perhaps. I see this almost like some, not quite a WrestleMania. I mean, I think they are replacing it this year. All out has been their WrestleMania, I think, for a couple of years. Now that is the following week in Chicago. So I
That
think maybe this year they're replacing it.
this is it. And
Mm,
I actually think I disagree with you a little bit. I
okay.
think this is it, and I think this is this is going to be an annual WrestleMania type biggest event. This is their star. This is their Starcade. This is their WrestleMania. This is it.
Well,
This is, and I think it's
not if
gonna
they don't
come.
pull it off and hit it out of the park next Saturday. It won't be.
I
Yeah.
think well again. All right, so we look at this like a business,
Yeah.
right? It's already a home run
It
for
is
business. It
absolutely,
already is a home run, right?
absolutely. You're right about that.
So I think that this is it. I think Forbidden Door everyday occurrence, like every year occurrence, annual
Hmm.
occurrence.
Hmm.
I actually think the New York City Grand Slam. It's
Right.
not a pay per view, but I do think it's a bash at the beach, if you will. It's like we're starting to see now the rotation that matters. I think for AEW, and I do think that even if it wasn't intended, because I think that's what you're getting at. All In may not have been the intended kind of WrestleMania, but it's the de facto default. I'm
Right.
telling you. And it's going to be, you're going all in next year. You're going all. Now, will it be in Wembley? I don't know, but it's going to be at the biggest outdoor stadium I think you can make it.
Hmm.
And I just, I don't know. Here's the question I would ask. Do you think, and given, which is hard to fathom, given all that we know and how long they've been building this up and how long they've been selling tickets, do you think it just kind of snuck up on them that we had to make this card? Or, like, do you think they were like, this was plan A is this, plan B is this, and just things just kept changing?
I think the latter. I think when they announced this and when tickets went on sale and they got to 40,000 on the first day
Were
and
you
then
thinking it was
50,000.
Danielson MGF?
Danielson, MJF. They
Okay.
may have been thinking about, uh, you know, maybe Punk versus Kenny. Maybe they were working on mending some fences and getting the Elite and CM Punk. But yes, I think continued animosity with these groups, the inability for these groups to come together.
By the way,
Probably
it was Soraya. Soraya is the other one I couldn't think of, but she's out, right, with injury.
no, Saraya's going to be there. She's in the she's in
Okay.
that fatal
Okay.
four way. Um,
Was it Tony Storm? Is one of those? No,
it was Jamie Hayter. Jamie
Jamie
Hayter.
Hayter. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah, I think some of this. I think Tony's been working on this for a long time, but I think yes, I think between some things that have happened in the locker room and injuries that have been out of their hands, they've had to switch it up. Plus, they've been still putting on. They added a show during this time too. So yes, a reoccurring theme with AEW is there's always a ton going on, and it sounds like there aren't a whole lot of people in the room who are putting this out. Tony's, you know, keeping all this stuff very close to the chest, and maybe it did bite him a little bit but like what would have changed had a lot of this card been announced a month ago? What were they gonna? They were. It's damn near sold out. They've done 80,000 without announcing a single thing. So I say, you know what? Who knows how we got here, but we're
Yeah, I
here.
don't.
Let's just roll with it.
To your point, though, I don't think anything has to change. I just think they could have built, right? You could have a week, or you could have a
Well,
month
some things
of.
have been being built. Their
Yeah,
their main
no,
events been being built very well.
I think so. I agree, but I'm thinking you could have had a month of Osprey Jericho, right? You could have had a month of
Well,
some of these other builds that I do think would have helped, build anticipation for the show. Not saying that it's let's do this. Let's do this because I do think you're right. They've got of what like
let's look at the
they've got
card
some
and
let's look at it and
I'll
talk
make the
about some of the
argument.
builds.
I'll make the argument that the build hasn't been going on for 6 weeks, but it didn't just start in the last
Right,
week, like
right.
maybe
And there's
previously
some
said.
that
Yeah,
are. So
yeah,
let's do that. I do like that idea. So let's do that for now. Let's start because again, I also think I'm gonna have some good counterpoints because some of this stuff really did just spring up.
yep.
And so let's start just in order of what I'm seeing online right now,
Okay.
which is this is gonna be hilarious. But I guess this is the buy-in. Is this gonna be the free match where it's Aussie Open versus MJF and Adam Cole to lead off? Because they said this is gonna be the hour
Yeah,
in, right?
the kickoff show. They even put out something in it for
Hilarious.
Wembley saying
First of
that
all,
we're going to open up early, come out early because
First
they.
of all,
Yeah,
I love this.
I
I
do too.
love this. I love
I do too.
this. Way to go, AEW, because this I love, and
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna set the tone for the main event in so many hilarious ways. There is no. We can even make. I can even make predictions now. I am not. Look, I. This is the easiest prediction of the night. There's no way they win the tag titles. I like it. I like your face. Because I'm thinking they figure out a way to turn on each other, screw it up, and get ready for the main event that night. It would be a great, wonderful, hilarious twist if they did win the tag titles. Then they have to fight at the main event to close the night out as well. I don't know where it goes, but I think they don't win. They start the I love it though. This is the first match. I don't want to talk about the matches yet. We're 10 days out.
Right.
But this is hilarious. You agree. I think we both agree quickly that this is built great. This is a phenomenal build.
Everything that's being built with Cole and MGF right now is fantastic. It is their bloodline storyline. It's not quite rivaling the bloodline storyline,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
these two have been overachieving for the last month and a half and giving us the best stuff on television
Hilarious.
every week. These two are, I mean, literally, it's two of the best talkers we've seen in wrestling in the last 10 years, among the two best. Adam Cole's fantastic. MJF is a generational talent in the ring and on the mic.
Right.
These two. So yeah, it's
I like it. This is great. Everything about this is great, and I do like them fighting for the Ring of Honor tag titles. Aussie Open, I do like a lot. This one, I do think was. This is an interesting match because the next one I want to talk about. I felt like it was kind of thrown on us, not built up a lot. But when you're talking about FTR and the Young Bucks, you don't really have to build it, right? They're going to sell themselves in that sense. But I will say I don't think that this build got any due, right? It was just like, oh, we're back now. And we're ready to try some tag matches. Let's go fight for the title.
Yeah, this is a match that could have come together based on a natural storyline that you would see on TV, but is also probably baked in with some real life drama behind the scenes too. These two, though, have they're relying on their history.
Yeah, they're
These
just
guys,
they're
these
just
guys have. So anytime it's like a faucet, you can turn on the FTR Young Bucks switch anytime you want because they're the only two tag teams that will be discussed in who's the best tag team outside of WWE. It's only those two you want to talk about.
I disagree.
Do you?
Yeah,
Do you?
Because you know who my favorite tag team is. My favorite people in all of AEW.
MJF and Adam Cole?
No.
Who's that?
The Lucha Bros.
They're great. They're so great.
I love I think there's 3 tag teams that you could have done this with. And if you had said Lucha Brothers, FTR, you said Lucha Brothers, Young Bucks, you'd said Young Bucks, FTR. I think you don't need to build this. Those are just great. If you said cage match, Lucha Brothers, and any of those, or cage match, you know what I mean? I think I don't even think you need to build because you know you're going to get a phenomenal match. I do wish they had given us some build because they didn't. They were just like, we're a good tag team. Let's fight for the titles.
Yeah, I mean, they've avoided each other for a long time. Yes. So, and all they really just had to say as the first tease was, the Young Bucks come out and just said FTR. FTR says Young Bucks. You know what they're talking about.
That's all. So you don't have to do it. I will still say my favorite match of all time in the history of AEW is the Young Bucks Lucha Brothers cage match. It's top notch. All right. Sheeta, Tony Storm, Saraya, Dr. Britt Baker, 4-way match for the AEW Women's Championship. I mean, I guess they've been circling a build on this. They've been building up Sheeta pretty big.
They had her win the title. They had this tournament over the course of the last few weeks, leading up to this 4-way match. All this without Jamie Hayter's a shame. Which the big shame is right now. I doubt it will end up being. I think things will get announced this week. Right now, it's the only women's match on the card, and I think that's kind of criminal. The women's division sort of usually underappreciated. I'm guessing Statlander will put her title on the line.
Grossly underappreciated. Absolutely. And I don't know. I'm going to counter that by saying I legitimately don't know because who is Statlander going to fight?
Right. She's been semi-feuding with Mercedes Martinez. Yeah, and that'd be a great match, but that doesn't move the needle at Wembley.
Show. No, it's a horrible. No. They could have the only thing you could have done is maybe break up those 4, maybe work Ruby Riott better. I don't know. But I actually don't think there's going to be another women's match unless
that'd be terrible. It'd be
terrible business.
It'd be a great spot for Jade to return.
Yep, but that's the only thing I can think of. Jade comes back at Collision or something like that.
I don't know what Jade's motivations are. I don't know what Tony's motivations are with the entire women's division. So who knows? I'd love to see it.
Let me pull you behind the curtain too, because it doesn't look good. Only because we talked about this all the time. I follow a lot of baseball. Jade's married to a former professional baseball player who happens to run a professional softball team. She's in a lot more photos with Brandon Phillips recently than she's ever been in her life. Doesn't look like she's like training or getting ready for the ring. So I don't know. Who knows? But I miss her. I love her. Bring her back.
Love to have her back.
So I don't. It is right now. Not like you said. I like your terminology. Not moving the needle. They did try to do some things with Britt last night on Dynamite. Mm-hmm. She got a win over the Bunny, I believe it is.
Yep. To qualify for the
match. So it's like it is what it is. Let's talk about one that I think also. All right, this is where we can really start. Look, the next 3 matches we can really start talking about. Have they failed with the build? And I really mean this. Let's talk about the Golden Elite, which is going to be Omega, Hangman, and Ibushi, and versus Takeshita and Bullet Club Gold.
Yeah.
They started this build yesterday. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
This started yesterday.
100% correct. Okay. This started yesterday. And it features literally some of the top talent in the world.
world. And except for the fact that we don't even know if Ibuchi's really full-time AEW, like we don't know this. Like
Yeah.
Hangman Page, they beat up Kenny when he's talking to JR, which I do. I love Bullet Club Gold. I want more from them right now, but I still love Bullet Club Gold. They beat up Kenny. That's great. And then next scene is like Adam Page outside of the ambulance talking about, yeah. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. I don't know how much effort's been put into this. Clearly it was not a lot. If I had to guess, Kenny and these guys just say, "Hey, TK, we got it. We'll throw something together." And I think Tony's been hands off in this, and this is what you get.
Why would you think that? This is the biggest show of the history of it. Why would you think Tony's hands off?
Well, I personally think that Kenny and Adam think they know how to do it themselves and are looking for. And I think this is just like, hey, this is what we want to do. Because if Tony is the only one behind this, then
I mean, he's got a creative team, but I mean,
I don't know.
Here's the thing.
I'm excited. I'm excited about it just because I'm really excited about the show.
Right.
I think, like a lot of people, I was kind of hoping Kenny would get a singles match. Hangman has sort of fallen off for me. He's not been that exciting for me. He certainly hasn't done very much in the this summer. A Kenny Omega Kota Ibushi match would really excite me. I'm glad they're not bringing Okada or Tanahashi back because I don't want it to be like another Forbidden Door type.
Yeah, I don't want that either.
Yeah, but maybe Kenny.
Maybe you give Kenny Jay White a one-on-one.
Well, that I think is in the future because through all this Bullet Club Gold, as good as it's been, and you're right, I do want to see more as well. They have been definitely protecting Jay White. Juice has taken all the pins because he's great at all the pins. But they're protecting Jay White because I think they do see Jay White as a main event level star on the level with Kenny Omega, MJF, Moxley, and Punk for going forward into 2024. So, one thing we haven't thought about is there could be some huge angle that they're going to debut at this event that will take you into Q3 and Q4 of this year. So, and Bullet Club Gold has been featured a lot lately. So I'm kind of hoping for this, that we're going to see something begin at this show with maybe some of these guys that's going to set the tone for the rest of the year. Not just, I always try to look forward. You don't want to look back.
Right. You're ever the optimist, but the fact remains that this just came up together yesterday, and it seems like it's kind of thrown together.
Better late than never, but they're pros and they'll make it work.
Speaking of things that were thrown together yesterday, our favorite came back, Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
From a very successful run in Japan, by the way. Very successful.
Good for Eddie. He lived a lot of his dreams this summer, so good for him.
He won some titles. He was crying a lot. There's a lot of crying Eddie videos. There's a lot of Eddie living his dream videos. I'll tell you what, there wasn't a lot of Eddie in the gym because he looks exactly the same.
Yep.
Doesn't look like he worked on his physique any, but that's fine. Eddie can go. But now you're looking at Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, Best Friends, and the Lucha Brothers versus Blackpool Combat Club and whoever else they can find to pair up with them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Who do you think's going to be the extra people? And again, this is something that came together last night, right?
Well,
outside of they had the what was the match last week, which was brutal. Biggest mistake I made was me and Cam watched that together.
Oh, that's a shame.
Brutal. But it was the parking lot match, Best Friends, Blackpool. Great match. Brutal. So there's a little bit of build up, but Eddie comes back, tries to put the jolt in this rivalry. Do you think there's enough build for this, or do you wish Blackpool had a bigger role in Wembley?
I do. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. Blackpool Combat Club is now feuding with Best Friends. Ooh, Good for best friends.
Good for best friends.
Best friends, man. That's you're basically in Dark Order territory. You know, if you're
I
the
think they
best
keep
friends.
trying to make Trent a thing because he was a bigger thing in Japan, and it's just not
Mm-hmm.
working.
Yeah. So, love John Moxley. Love Claudio. You know, Claudio walks around with that Ring of Honor title. You know, unless
Defends it.
never defends it. And certainly not in AEW. Maybe, I don't think he defends it on the Ring of Honor show either.
No.
You know, John Moxley carried that company for a couple of years. If he likes doing these sort of like quasi death matches, and if John's happy, I'm happy. And I don't hear Moxley complaining too much about what he's doing right now. He's getting paid handsomely. He's traveling with his wife. He gets to like use forks and bleed every week. So John, I think, is still living his best life. I would like more for Blackpool Combat Club, but they haven't done a Stadium Stampede show in a long time, and that always brings great spots and moments. You know, everyone remembers Sammy getting hit with the golf cart a couple of years ago. So Wembley's a big stadium to have Stadium Stampede in. So it's going to be interesting how they utilize that space. But it'll be a fun match. It'll be a gross match. But we'll see Eddie. We'll see John. We'll see everybody. And Wheeler Yuta will, end up taking the pin if they lose. So, it'll be awesome.
Wheeler Yuta will get pinned. We know this. That's really, I mean, we talked a little bit about, we think is the best build of the program so far, which was the MJF Adam Cole main event, Wembley. Are there any, I don't see any other matches on the table that we know of right now, but there is
what appears, I think what we'll see, because they teased it last night, seemingly also kind of out of nowhere, is, I mean, they've had this angle for a couple of weeks of Billy Gunn leaving his boots in the ring.
Yep.
The Acclaimed, who could use a jolt again. Acclaimed sort of been out of the title picture for a few months.
I apologize really quick. I don't want to cut you off, but we also, it is booked, and I don't think we mentioned the Darby Allin Sting mogul embassy.
Okay, let's get to that in just a sec.
Get back. But you're right. You were talking about
what I believe is going to be booked is House of Black versus the Acclaimed and a returning Billy Gunn. And when the way it's sort of been booked with Billy and the Acclaimed, I don't think that's a weird combination to take the belts off House of Black. And I hope it doesn't happen, but I see that 6-man title maybe changing hands at All In to give Billy sort of the exclamation point on this storyline. It's weird, and if they do that, I hope they have something really big planned for House of Black. But man, House of Black is probably behind MGF and Cole was my second favorite group in AEW.
How good is House of Black? They're so good.
I was thinking that we're gonna have to do this at some point. I want to do like the top 5 or maybe even top 10. No, probably top 5 wrestlers in 8. Who are the best AEW wrestlers who have never been in WWE? And I think Brody King is in that top 5. That dude is a monster. Yeah. Love me some Brody King.
I think House of Black is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. I love them. Yeah. I think they're great. I think they should be utilized. They should be at the top echelon of AEW.
Yeah, Malachi Black should be in a big program, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think House of Black, I like using them as the trios champion, 6-man. Like, just give them a really good opponent, like some big time opponents. Because I mean, they give me. It's not exactly the same because they are heels, but they give me that feeling of when Nikita Koloff and the Koloff brothers are coming, it's just that level of awesomeness / heelish. Mm-hmm. They need a Magnum TA, Dusty Rhodes, Road Warriors type opponent.
Oh yeah,
and they all just need to hit the ring. And right now, I hate to say it, but right now, Blackpool's probably not at that level where, they would have to make a really good build to put Blackpool Combat Club and House of Black in a place where I think it could have been Dusty, Magnum, you know what I mean, versus the Horseman type. But I think that that's where I think House of Black should be.
Agreed.
I'm really high on
Agreed. And Julia Hart, she's not quite like that Rhea Ripley character in
No,
the
she's
Judgment
nothing
Day,
like Rhea Ripley.
but
Nothing like
I would
Rhea
love
Ripley.
to see her continue and see her career, where the point where she becomes as strong and as powerful too, because she's a fantastic talent as well, in my opinion.
Here's my problem with Julia
What's
Hart.
that?
I will tell you my problem with Julia Hart. Every time she gets in the ring to actually wrestle, she's just not that good.
Well, that's
like she's young.
right.
She's super
Right.
young.
She's 20. She's 21.
super
She's
young.
21 years old. She's got time.
She has a ton of I think charisma.
Mhm.
I love her in the House of Black.
Mhm.
But remember, for a while they were giving her singles matches and giving her wins. She was winning these single matches, and it's just man, I think the issue when we talk about Rhea Ripley and Judgment Day, you don't want to mess with Rhea Ripley.
Right.
Rhea Ripley's gonna
right.
kill
Julia
you.
Hart won't ever be that.
Yeah, she won't ever be that physical wise, but I mean, I would love for her to be someone that could just be a real threat. And today I don't think she's a threat. I think her, she's more of a valet. I can distract you,
Also fine too. Also fine. Fine enough. Also, but
I think she's a perfect fit for that team. I think that team is Buddy Murphy, Brody King, amazing. They don't need to change anything with the House of Black. They just need to move those guys up. I love this. Yeah, they're great.
Sting and Darby against Swerve.
Good, very much like you said. Good for Best Friends that you got this build. Good for Mogul Embassy, because I don't know anything they've done to deserve it.
No.
But they get it. I think there's a lot of chemistry there between Swerve, AR Fox, Nick Wayne, and Darby, and they're just gonna ride that out to make a good match. I don't think it's necessarily a good story. I don't think they found. I did like the Keith Lee Swerve stuff, but I don't think they found a good Swerve story. Swerve is as a talent, I believe, that really could be. I hate to keep giving WWE equivalents, but I will in this case, because right now in my mind, Swerve's floating around Austin Theory territory, and Swerve should be at Seth Rollins territory. That's where Swerve Strickland should
Every
be.
time I see Swerve, it makes me think about Keith Lee, and just sort of man, is it just like a health thing with Keith Lee? Is it just we don't have anything for you right now, brother thing? Because he seems to be so wasted there, and he had such potential. And I always just wonder what's going on with that, and if it's a Keith Lee decision, if it's a Tony Khan decision, what's going on. But I miss me some Keith Lee. I would love to see him insert, because we never got that Keith Lee Swerve Strickland blow off, did we?
Nope.
Well,
the last thing we really got was the center block shattering, right, on Keith Lee's chest, the biggest memory.
Yeah.
But here's the thing I do wonder about Keith Lee. This is a very interesting question that you brought up, because most people don't know. We can look it up. You can tell me if you find it before I do. How old is Keith Lee?
I can look it up. I would guess he's 39, 40. What do you think he is?
Keith Lee is 38 years old.
Okay, 38, 39.
And here's the interesting thing about Keith Lee. Keith Lee was kind of in the kind of rise of Keith Lee from the Indies through NXT to even the WWE. He was kind of built on being this massive man with supreme athleticism. Yeah. And I can't say for sure, but at 38 years old, after some of the injuries and the layoffs that he's had, after kind of being one of the guys that I think sat out quite a bit from the pandemic, or there was some stuff that was happening in the pandemic with
health issues. Yep.
He came back, I think, honestly, pretty larger. He's bigger. I think he's bigger in AEW than he was in WWE. And he hasn't displayed the power, but he hasn't displayed the athleticism that he showed in NXT, which was doing, flips over the ropes
Mm-hmm.
to get out of the like.
Mm-hmm.
And I just never. So there's a part of me that wonders if indeed, I hate to say it this way, but is he incapable of doing the things at 38 years old with the injury pass that that he was able to do to get him to the certain point where WWE thought he was going to be a sure talent star? And I'm just like, I'm very interested to see, like, will we ever see a Keith Lee that display that much athleticism that he did a couple of
Yeah,
years
I
ago?
think Keith Lee is actually a great example of when of the WWE model that has the performance center and NXT and training, and AEW that doesn't. When you talk about his just, and again, it's all depends on the individual, but Keith Lee probably was getting a lot more regular conditioning time, but he had so many options in WWE with the performance center and NXT versus AEW, where if he's not being used, it's like all on him. And I know I'm sure, taking care of himself, but it could be help. Could be a lot of things we'll never know about. Could be just health
We
problems.
never know. It could be things we
But
never know
whenever
about. You're
whenever I
exactly
think whenever
right.
I think of Swerve,
But
I think of Keith Lee, and I wish Keith was on my TV as much as Swerve is.
I, it's interesting you say, because I'm not 100% sure I would agree with that as much as I would say they still have to figure. And I don't know. This is where I usually think that either we're giving Tony too much credit or too little credit. Either Tony gets a lot more credit or a lot more blame, or both. It does seem to me like Swerve is one of these guys that's kind of writing his own script. And I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out, like, maybe he shouldn't. Because I mean, from the time he came into the I'm a mogul, I'm a bit, it just seems like you know, Swerve. Let's figure something that works out. But I don't know if Mogul Embassy is it. Like, I don't know. And it was interesting because Hit Row was great,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Hit Row was where Swerve needed to be. And the interesting thing is they're trying to figure out how they can do something Hit Row ish without actually calling it Hit Row, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's like they're so I I just don't necessarily know. But I will tell you this: Nick Wayne, Darby Allin, Swerve, they're gonna put on a hell of a show. They're gonna get the hell
What
beat
is
out of
is Nick
them.
Wayne in the tag team, or is it Sting?
Let me see exactly what
I
it
think
is. It's
it's
Darby Allin, Sting, Mobile Embassy, coffin match.
yeah. Nick Nick
I'm sure
Wayne's
Nick Wayne will
will
be
be
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure
here's interesting.
the other members of Mobile
E-
Embassy will be
Eric
there.
Bischoff said on his podcast this week he wanted to see Sting have a retirement match at All In. That's where he should go out in front of 80,000 people. Now, I don't like the fact that Eric Bischoff's trying to tell Sting when to call it a career, but
Right.
do you think Sting still seeming he hasn't wrestled much this year, but
Right.
he's definitely still very active. And I was
Uh,
just I was
uh,
just wondering
uh,
if you think you know
should he call it a
should
day?
he use an opportunity? I mean, he's not going to do it, but should he have used this
Yeah, I don't.
opportunity to have I would have thought he'd be a great retirement if he's going to have a retirement match. Have it against Darby, So
Oh
so
no, I don't know
so
about
are
that.
we going to see Sting, an icon, 30 almost 40 years in the business? Is his final match going to be on a Dynamite in Wheeling, West Virginia? Is that
It's probably going to be worse. It's probably going to be a Ric Flair type individual
oh
pay per
geez,
view versus Jay Lethal. Like,
against Jay Lethal?
speaking of another group that's not on the bill, they had a Texas Chainsaw match last night,
Well,
but
if
they're not on All In,
it
right?
was, I'm sure it wasn't their fault, but I would have. These guys should just stay home and be punished for what they made us watch yesterday. That was
All right,
ridiculous.
we're not gonna get
Oh
into
my
that. We're not gonna
god.
get into that. But I'm interested in your question about. Uh, I think it's very interesting. I think if they continue to use Sting like they've used him this year and kind of how they used him since his old AEW run,
Hmm.
Sting could go on for another 5 years. Like, he doesn't do that much in regards to,
Right.
and he's still Sting. It's really awesome. Um, Who would you rather see retire, Jeff Hardy or Sting?
Jeff Hart. Between Jeff Hardy and Sting, I'd rather see Jeff Jarrett retire.
I hate to say it, brother, but every Hardy Boys match now I'm looking at like, woof, woof.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are we doing this to these
Yeah,
guys?
Jarrett and the Hardys are occupying spots for I think people I would rather see on television. Nothing against those guys; they've got great careers. But I was watching Jeff Jarrett when I was a teenager. I was watching the Hardys when talk about losing a couple of miles per hour on fastballs. Yeah, it's and they had to use gimmicks like that to kind of cover up their lack of not being who they used to be now.
But here's the other question about this, and we should think about this. We should legitimately think about this because we're talking about people that are on TV
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about Swerve, you talk about Jeff Jarrett and that group.
Yeah.
And then in the same vein, every episode we talk about how we're underutilizing. Not only you're talking about Keith Lee, but now it seems like on Collision, Book of Hobbs is going to find some home there. Maybe I love the Book of Hobbs mirror. That should be a Wembley match, right? It's like they're building this, right? But there's so many AEW, I think, future stars that are underutilized, and then we have to sit through 15 minutes of Hardy Boys and another 10 minutes of Jeff Jarrett, and I'm like, what are we doing?
I mean,
how does that work?
Because it's because it draws viewers still.
Does that Jeff Jarrett match?
What
that Texas Chainsaw Massacre match? Did that draw?
Well, I'm just saying the Hardys by themselves still showing up. Like I don't, how else do you explain it? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
You explain last night's because this was a sponsored thing. They got AEW got 6 figures from whoever pays for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it went to Maui Fireworks. So that's why last night happened. But in general, if the Hardys are being used as a vehicle to promote Ethan Page, good, but that doesn't seem to be happening. If they're using Jeff Jarrett as a vehicle to promote Jay Lethal, good, but that doesn't seem like it's happening either. So
I loved Lethal, but I might be over him. I love Lethal, but I might be. They haven't had a good Lethal. Like one, has Lethal ever even held a title in AEW?
No.
He's wrestled for the title like a million times.
Yeah.
But I think I'm tired of saying Lethal deserves better.
We're seeing I think it's catching up. We're seeing this like massive acquisition of every single available talent. It's a very large roster, and even adding a show, you were able to elevate 5, 6, 7 people. Your Hobbses, your Starks, your people who should be elevated, your Andrades. Right. But like, there's also just so many people under contract that it's easy to just kind of not be on television for 3 weeks. Like, again, we also don't know about injuries and other events and all that stuff. But like, what happened? Is Hook in graduate school? Did he decide just to stop being a wrestler?
Is he done? Is Hook done? Is Hook over?
Here's a bold prediction. Hook's gonna be the next one who goes to WWE. That's also been being talked about a lot. That Taz wants him in WWE. Vince and Hunter want Hook. Hook could be the kind of guy that I could see.
How would Taz want him in WWE when Taz is literally an AEW?
Because he knows it's a bigger platform.
This is ridiculous. All right. Well, we've got. You wanted to have a list next week about top 5 AEW talent that never went to AEW.
We'll do it.
We should also have a list next week of like the top 5 underutilized AEW talent on the AEW roster, because I am looking at a list on the AEW roster of folks. I mean, the list on AEW roster is so deep.
It really is
so deep, and there are so many people that like.
Right.
Is it wrong to say? Is it wrong to say now? I hate to say that. I hate to even form my lips to say this. But do we miss Dark and Evolution? Like we don't have places to Peter Avalon. Like what is
Well,
happening here?
it's interesting. It's just it's this is a much different company than it was 4 years ago. I mean, in a lot of ways, this went from being a quirky alternative that featured a lot of young stars to Dante Martin has no chance to make a dent in
Well,
AEW.
he's hurt, right? He is
Darius
hurt.
is hurt, but just like even someone like him, I mean, even like that, like
Right.
you know, if you can't find a way to use Dalton Castle on TV, but you're showing Matt and Jeff Hardy all the time, like it's a lot of. I just think this is inexperience on Tony's part. This is having to deal with a lot of other issues other than just like booking a wrestling show. And I think I think we just got to kind of sit back, enjoy this ride because like I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. But it is between this and all the other backstage stuff that's going on with like Punk running Collision and not wanting certain talents to come to the shows. I don't want to get into dirt sheet stuff like that, but like there is just drama galore building and building, building, and it's got to be some breaking point. And at the end of the day, kind of as a wrestling journalist, like you and I are, we're not dirt sheets, we're journalists. You just got to kind of sit back and say, well, I'm saying we are. You just got to kind of find the exciting things that you can get out of there and just sit back and enjoy those. And that is really going to be MJF and Adam Cole. And it's going to be something that's going to happen with Punk and the Elite. It's going to happen. Let's just focus on those things. Next week, we're going to have to give our predictions for All In. And, in addition to those other topics, we're going to talk about some of the ideas for Q4 that if we were booking AEW, what we put together. So there's a lot to talk about, but
we do. We got 2 minutes left, and it's probably impossible to do. But you did mention Punk, and I want to talk about it. You mentioned it as well. There's some more Punk stuff talking about, like, I guess control over Clay. What was the Punk story that I did not know that that we will discuss quickly?
So it came out in the last week that a couple of talent, Hangman Adam Page, first of all, Christopher Daniels, and Nick Nemeth, who is Dolph Ziggler's brother, who's contracted with AEW. Those guys were asked to go to Collision, and then they were kind of the report was they weren't allowed in the building. They were told just to go home, and that Punk was the reason why they weren't allowed in the building. That quickly got sort of fixed and amended, had to be backtracked, that they were coming in for promo videos, and the location just got changed. And Punk really had nothing to do with Hangman Adam Page not being there. He did, however, say, yeah, I had a problem with Chris Daniels and Nick Nemeth because Christopher Daniels was part of the All Out fracas last year, and Nick had made some disparaging comments. But the other thing that ended up being true was he's not Jungle Boy anymore. Hollywood Jack Perry. Jack Perry wanted to do an angle using real glass. And Punk said, no, we're not doing that. We care about safety around here. And that apparently rubbed Jack Perry the wrong way. This was not an issue that was split very well. Some people were saying this is just Punk flexing his muscles. And most people just said, Punk telling Jack Perry not to use real glass is about the smartest thing Punk has said, in the last year in AEW. So Punk continues to draw drama, but Punk also continues to draw money and draw ratings and draw merch sales. So I'm not going to complain because,
as our friend TG would say, employee of the year.
I'm a CM Punk guy. Grab those controls, Punk, and steer for the center of the sun. I'm with you on that.
That's funny.
Great show.
Let's get out of here. Last question: is Serena Deeb dead?
Serena's been hurt, but
okay. I was like, I haven't seen Serena Deeb in a while.
Hey,
after she got a huge push at one point.
Get in line, Serena, because there are a lot of people who need to come back before you. Oh, to answer your question, we'll go off on this. Who do
Yeah.
I think will join Blackpool Combat Club in the
Yeah,
Stadium
that'd be
Stampede?
interesting.
I think Santana and Ortiz. There you go. Those guys are going to make a return
Fight Eddie
and come
Kingston,
back.
yeah. I mean, it's about time. Santana's been out since he like blew his ACL.
Yep.
It's been over a
Yeah, he was
year.
in the blood and guts match that he hurt
Yeah,
himself in. So I say
yeah.
Santana and Ortiz are the surprise partners with Blackpool Combat Club, and they come back.
All right. Well, I hope you're right because I really love Pride and Powerful. I hope they to get back. Santana was right before the injury. He was really making a
Mm-hmm.
run. Not just with AEW. He was one of those guys that were doing a bunch of indie shows and like challenging for a bunch of those indie
Yep.
titles. And so that's really, really interesting. All right. EJ the Collector, another week in the books. A lot of all-in build-up, and we still have 10 days. So we have another Collision, another Rampage, another Dynamite, all before we hit Wembley Stadium and everything goes to complete chaos. So we've got some time.
MJF, if Logan Paul doesn't have you on his show, you're welcome to come on ours and talk about it.
Absolutely. There's been some Logan Paul MJF Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. I love how people are just writing in like formerly known as Twitter now. Banter online.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes as well. All right. We're going to have to get out of here. Clap it up here. We're going to count it 1, 2, 3 until next week.